Hello and welcome back.
Good morning, happy Tuesday, Turkey Tots.
Well, hello. It's cold and dry in Florida, and I feel like my skin is tight on my face, but I'm gonna try to stop fixating on it and be normal.
I know exactly what you mean.
Feels
like the
extra
elasticity is gone because it's so dry in your room.
Yeah. Welcome back and happy Tuesday, turkeys. How long have we known each other?
We've known each other for 2 decades.
I am not apologizing for who I am or what I like or the people that I love.
How do I be a wife? How do I be a mom? And how do I be myself and all of that? You didn't see that coming, did you?
Okay. God, Kaylee. All right, here we go. Rule number 9, chapter 9. We're almost done. We're like
3 weeks, 3
3/4.
chapters. Oh yeah, that too.
I just spit that math out so fast. Rule 9, chapter 9. Assume the person you are listening to might know something you don't. This was very challenging. I also think this should probably be posted on the threshold of every medical office.
Yes.
Because think about how many times you've been a patient at a doctor's office and they have an idea already in their head of what your thing is, and you can tell that they've already decided that and they are listening none to what you're trying to say.
Yes, personal experience, yes.
I know.
It's just because, I mean, and we all do it. It's just like this bias in our head that once we assume what's correct, we just stick on that path.
Especially if we're at work and it's our area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
This was a very good reminder to me of this because they might still be wrong in the long run. And the physician might, like in my example, a physician might still be correct in the long run. But if you would just let's play a game and pretend that this person knows something that I don't or has a piece of information that I haven't figured out yet, it makes you a better listener and more empathetic, I would argue.
Oh yeah, very good chapter.
Okay, let's summarization. We begin this chapter with a few examples from Dr. Peterson's time working as a psychotherapist. He uses experiences of therapy to highlight what a collaborative conversation looks like. We are challenged to break down communication to its most basic features. What does it mean to think? Why is it important for us to think out loud for processing? And what does it actually mean to listen? Once we lay down these basic principles, how do we actually implement them so we can communicate in the most effective way possible and with the most benefit to ourselves and others? These are all questions he's proposing to us. Later in the chapter, Dr. Peterson covers different types of conversation and reminds us why the reaction of the person we are speaking to can be a helpful tool in helping us judge the rightness of our own thoughts. Is this person giving me a crazy look? Do they appear concerned? Maybe I need to reevaluate my point of view on said topic. And lastly, this chapter concludes with the realization that in order to fully engage with another person, we have to suspend our own selfish need to blab or to feel important so that we can truly absorb and consider what is being said. What's the best way to ensure we are heard and listened to what is the best way to ensure we heard and listened and absorbed? Restate the other person's story back to them and check for understanding. It's hard to communicate well. It takes patience, self-awareness, and sometimes restraint. But when we can collaboratively explore a topic together, we are all improved through the process.
A+. Yep.
His therapy examples are really interesting to me. I don't think any part of this chapter lost me. It was a little long, but I felt non-confused.
I agree. It's probably because we didn't go back to BC era or no, whatever. I don't know, all the things. His therapy examples were really interesting, and it just validated that, man, this guy is smart and humble as much as he can be, because I found a correlation between his examples to, I mean, my everyday life for sure, but especially at work. Like you were saying, when you feel like you are the expert, or you are, and someone says something, I'm so guilty sometimes of immediately figuring out the answer. And then now I'm just not listening. I'm just waiting for them to stop talking, or I'm formulating what I'm about to say. And you lose a lot, even like you said, even if they're wrong, or even if it doesn't matter, at least you can sympathize better. And maybe there is a little gleam of information that you're missing that you've lost because you're in your head just trying to answer.
Even understanding their point of view. Like, you're not going to be able to do that if you're off in your own little headspace. I'm so guilty of that when I get in a hurry with just people in day-to-day life where they're trying to explain something to me and I already know. So I'm just like, please stop talking. I got it. I get it. But I realize how much I don't like when someone goes, no, and you already said that. Because I think Jason's ADHD brain makes him really, makes it even more painful to listen to something when he already knows the answer or when he already gets the gist of what I'm trying to say. And I can be a bit of an over explainer, so it's a funny combination. But every once in a while, he'll be like, no, I get it, it's fine, I get it. And then my response has so many times been, would you have died if you just let me get out the last two words? Would it really have killed you? And then we have a good laugh. But having experienced that, it's good for me to remember people can tell, and I need to just chill. Because people can definitely feel when your energy has not tuned into them or has
Oh,
left the
yeah.
building.
And I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but you mentioned it in your summary is to summarize the point. And that's something that's honestly in our training to do. It's like to ease a concern, cushion the concern, restate it, whatever, find a solution and
Yeah,
ask if whatever. It's so true because, like he was saying, I could either summarize it correctly, I may not summarize it correctly, or I'd be like totally wrong. But the thing that I really thought was cool, and again, I'm listening to it, and hopefully, I don't know if you have this quote, we'll get there, but he basically said something like, when you're summarizing the point, someone else's point, not only does it make sure you understand, but it could open the door for understanding for yourself. Like, that's not a direct quote, that was me making notes, but it's like you are risking changing your mind or being exposed to something that is maybe outside of your thought, which some people don't like to do. And so summarizing it could work in both capacities.
definitely. And it makes you feel heard and understood as the speaker in a way that I think really helps break down walls, especially again if you're coming in to refute something that somebody said or to try to reframe. It helps them listen to you and have buy-in if you can say, okay, here's what I'm hearing. Does that sound correct? And it doesn't have to be, I heard you say. I mean, there's ways to do this and it's a practice where it sounds natural.
Yeah.
But the ability to summarize and validate somebody else's feelings, I think, is extremely important, especially if you are having a hard conversation, because you can't be as defensive. And also, sometimes when you summarize it back to them, if it's accurate and if it's absurd, they might hear it from the outside and say, oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Exactly.
But if you interrupt them, just that alone is going to ratchet up the aggravation in the room.
Yep.
These are all so handy dandy. Okay, we'll just start right off the ballast with some quotations. Honestly, the first paragraph was a banger, so I'm going to read it.
Do it.
And it's sarcastic, which I think I loved. Psychotherapy is not advice. Advice is what you get when the person you're talking with about something horrible and complicated wishes you would just shut up and go away. Advice is what you get when the person you are talking to wants to revel in the superiority of his or her own intelligence. If you weren't so stupid after all, you wouldn't have your stupid problems. Psychotherapy is a genuine conversation. Genuine conversation is exploration, articulation, and strategizing.
I feel like the humility kept coming up in this chapter as well. Like being humble to the fact that, again, whether you think you're right or not, is just let the conversation happen. And I've learned to, because I've been doing my career for so long, sometimes when my amazing husband will ask me a question, I'm quick to give advice. And I've learned to step back after conversations that we've had and say, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's like, do you want me to just listen and just like be there, or do you want me to give you my advice? Because I'm so like fix it mode advice. Like that's the path I always take. And sometimes he doesn't need that, and sometimes it's just more annoying. He's like, Kayla, I just needed you to listen and I'm just venting. I'm like, oh, okay. My bad.
I know it is. When Jason first started, because we don't work together and our jobs aren't the same, but we're dealing with the same agency. There were times he was saying things and I was like, that's never going to happen. It would be nice if not everybody was so pessimistic. So maybe I just need to chill out. Or, just the realizations of stuff that you don't know until you're inside the belly of the beast. And I'm getting better at just listening instead of being like, this is what I've been saying.
Yeah, exactly.
All those times I was venting.
Yep.
Anyway. It's definitely a skill. I sort of think every therapist should read this chapter.
Yes, I agree. And doctor.
Yeah. Because just in the beginning part, it's challenging, like working with people and listening to people all the time. And some days you don't have as much patience as others. And some people you talk to are real noodles. And it's definitely a skill. And there are definitely some bad therapists out there. Especially the part where he talks about how easy it would be to steer them toward a certain point of view or political ideology or structure of looking at the world. That was very, very insightful and very powerful. And God, the self-awareness that's required to stand in and support people is
impressive. I know there's like this very thin line of as your job as a therapist, are you putting them on a path to heal and have empowerment, or are you allowing them to be like a victim? And it obviously depends on the circumstance and the scenario. And I'm not a licensed therapist, so I know not a first thing about this, but just the way he was describing it, I was like, you could change the trajectory of someone's life depending on how you respond. Like, that's a lot of weight. I don't want to do that.
I know. And then I was thinking even about parents, because there's so many parallels.
It's so stressful. Stressful.
Oh man. All right. This is under the heading of figuring it out for yourself. I decided instead to listen. I have learned not to steal my clients' problems from them. I don't want to be the redeeming hero or the French word. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. De ex machina. Not in someone else's story. I don't want their lives, so I asked her to tell me what she thought, and I listened. She talked a lot. When we finished, she still didn't know if she had been assaulted.
Yeah.
And neither did I. Life is very complicated. Sometimes you have to change the way you understand everything to properly understand a single something. So this was in the midst of a context of a whole story of how a woman walked in and basically said, I think that I was assaulted multiple times. And this is where he lays out his example of, I could have immediately gone to the, of course you were, and bolstered the affirmation. He's like, or I could have gone to the negative and bolstered the, no, you weren't, and made her doubt herself. And he just talks about, again, it's my job. She said, I think, so I'm going to ask her to tell me why. And then I'm just going to absorb her as she processes through that. Because any reaction one way or the other is going to change the outcome of the story, and it's her story. And I loved him talking about not being the hero, because I think that is just such a problem that so many of us in the helping profession have, because we do want to be helpful, and you mean well, but you can't come in and just hijack somebody else's deal.
It's subconscious sometimes, I feel, as though you offer all this help. Not only to help them, but also like pat yourself on the back a little bit.
And even if there's so many things going on, even just with a friend or a family member telling you something hard, sometimes it's really cringy and it can be uncomfortable to sit in that space and hold space for somebody. It's almost easier to give advice to alleviate the stress or to try to stop them from floundering in front of you, because that's not fun either. But then again, you're preventing them of the process of working through it and talking it out. And if you don't have the patience in that moment to give that person the space that they need, it's probably more beneficial for you to say, hey, this is tough. Like, let's schedule a time when I'm not busy doing something else, or, pausing instead of just trying to quickly, oh, you should just do this.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So true.
Okay, then he talks about conversation, and then he starts moving into describing what thinking is, and he says thinking is having an internal conversation with yourself, which I thought was really interesting. So then he says true thinking is complex and demanding. It requires you to be an articulate speaker and careful, judicious listener at the same time. It involves conflict, so you have to tolerate conflict. Conflict involves negotiation and compromise, so you have to learn to give and take and to modify your premises and adjust your thoughts, even your perceptions of the world.
I really like this part because what I gathered too, and I don't have the direct quote, but he said something like you said at the beginning, thinking is like, some people think they think, but they really don't. It's just, concerns or worries or these passing thoughts that, they talk about that in therapy too. It's like, let your thoughts pass, because that's maybe not coming from you, which is weird. Like, your own thoughts in your head are not your own. So where are they coming from? but also, like, are you truly thinking, or are you just going through the day blindly, just getting bombarded by these subconscious things? That part was interesting to me.
Yeah, it was. He lines this out to say that's why conversation and talk therapy is so helpful, because it can be hard to do a lot of that internally and to be your own self-critic. So having that mirror to talk to and saying it out loud. Sometimes people even saying it out loud, you hear it, it registers differently. And how many times in talking to a friend or a family member have they said, now that I say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous?
Yes. Well, he used that example where the guy was like, I hate my wife. And then immediately after he said it and it was in the air and like it was out,
Yeah.
he's like, well, I don't hate her. I just hate her sometimes. And then he goes on through the story about how he's actually comparing his wife to his mother and she's not bad at all. Anyway, it was interesting, like just his thought process, but he had to like speak it. And then
Yeah.
he just took off and figured it out. I don't think he even said anything.
No, and I think this highlights the real skill of a therapist in that way, to have the patience and to hang out in the awkwardness, to let somebody kind of walk through. Because he could immediately have jumped on and been like, do you really hate your wife? But if you sit there and just simmer in what's uncomfortable, then the person speaking usually tends to fill in the gap. Loved everything about this chapter. Okay, next one. You need good, even great reasons to ignore or defy general public opinion. That's your culture. It's a mighty oak. You perch on one of its branches. If the branch breaks, it's a long way down, farther perhaps than you think. If you're reading this book, there's a strong probability that you're a privileged person. You can read, you have time to read, you've perched high in the clouds. It took untold generations to get where you are. A little gratitude might be in order.
I like that part. I chuckled at that last sentence.
Me too. And he's right that generally public opinion has existed through a long process. So he goes on to explain, if you've done some, critical self-thinking, and if you have spent some time really, I don't know, working through a problem, it is possible that the norm and the general societal thing is incorrect. But he just kind of says, not every new revolutionary idea is necessarily a good idea. And you need to kind of recognize the things that got you to where you are before you sit there and want to tear everything to the ground.
Yeah, so true. I don't know if this was more in the last quote or if you're getting to it, but when he was talking about someone just letting someone talk, I liked how he said, someone speaking of the past, it can be a lot and he has to wait and listen to them forever because they're trying to figure out what's true and what's real and like navigating this memory. And I liked how he said remembering isn't about or a memory isn't about remembering every detail. It's about choosing what to let go and making the memory more precise and not so weighty. I really like that because I'm like once you kind of navigate it, like I'm literally thinking about like a maze or a map and you like have to navigate the memory out loud and process it, then it's like, okay, I can grasp it now and put it in my pocket. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I like that example too. Okay. Oh, I do. Again, I like how he talks about conversation as a small way of judging if what you're saying is normal or not, which sort of tells you how important is it that the people you choose to speak to be in a sound and sturdy place, because their reactions, if you're using them as a barometer, if they're fucked up, then you're gonna get fucked up with them,
Exactly.
which is sort of scary.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
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 Or people being shocked by good behavior or excited about bad behavior. Anyway.
Yes.
Okay. So you have to get along with other people. A therapist is one of those other people. A good therapist will tell you the truth about what he or she thinks. That is not the same thing as telling you what he or she thinks is the truth. Then at least you have the honest opinion of at least one person. That's not so easy to get, and that's not nothing. That's key to the psychotherapeutic process. Two people tell each other the truth and both listen. I thought that was such a nice summary of what talk therapy is.
I do like that. That reminds me, it's the same chapter, but I don't know if it's around this point. I think it was funny when he said, shoot, I can't remember what he said. He's like, your car's broken and you have a broom. you can't fix your car, but at least you can sweep your floor. That's something. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot what he said exactly, but yeah, one
It's so
step at a
true.
time.
Exactly. Then he quotes a lot of foundational psychotherapists in this chapter, so I'm just going to read one of the Carl Rogers quotes because I loved it. The great majority of us cannot listen. We find ourselves compelled to evaluate because listening is too dangerous. The first requirement is courage, and we do not always have it. Because it is. You have to be able to take in new information and suppose that you're wrong in order to truly listen, and that is not something I am great at all the time, as well as other people.
And I also think it comes down to like when we first started this podcast, and I'm still guilty of doing it. We're having a conversation right now, but we're also recording this for people to listen. And I don't want to sound like an idiot. So sometimes I'm still guilty of this, not all the time, but sometimes I'll be listening to you and then I stop listening to you and I'm thinking about what I need to say next. When I've gotten better over the last 100 episodes that we've done. But it's funny because you don't, it's like it goes back to humility and courage. Like, I don't want to be an idiot. I'm not listening to you actively because I'm more concerned with myself and how I'm going to sound next. Where if I would just listen to you and maybe there is 1 second pause or 2 second pause, well, either the listener listens to the 2 second pause or we edit it in the back end, but at least I can take a second and then respond. Like, I'm still working on that.
Dude, it's so true. And how often has that happened? Because that's happened to me a ton in work settings where you're in a meeting with the fancy pantses and you don't want to sound dumb. But again, you probably sound dumber by not listening and not actually responding properly than sitting there and formulating your whole response before someone is finished.
So guilty of that.
It's hard not to, especially in high stakes settings like that where you care what people think.
Mm.
So much of life boils down to distress tolerance, I think.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Just being able to be uncomfortable and be okay with that. And then the vulnerability of being dumb.
Dude, that's so true. Which, on a side note, I've been trying to not give my screaming child food when he's screaming anymore because I'm letting him get out of his discomfort sooner. Like, he may have just ate lunch, but I know a piece of bread is going to stop him from crying. But I'm like, sorry, bro. I can't give you a piece of bread. You gotta sit in it. Like, obviously I'm emotionally available for him, but it's like I've read something that was like, you're doing them a disservice as a parent to not allow them to be uncomfortable at all. Because then they don't know what that is and then they can't handle it. Ugh, so
Also,
hard.
as a side note, I wish that I wasn't so easily manipulated by food.
I know that too.
I use food as a treat all the time, and I totally get it's such an easy thing to do. Dude, junk food was such a reward for me.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming my parents. I think that's true of schools and every system available. But, now I do something and I think I need a sweet little treat. And no, Kaylee, I don't want to soothe myself with food. Okay. Quote time again.
Sorry.
When someone opposes you, it is very tempting to oversimplify, parody, or distort his or her position. This is a counterproductive game designed both to harm the dissenter and to unjustly raise your personal status. By contrast, if you are called upon to summarize someone's position so that the speaking person agrees with that summary, you may have to state the argument even more clearly and succinctly than the speaker has yet even managed. If you first give the devil his due, looking at his argument from his perspective, you can 1, find the value in them and learn something in the process, or 2, hone your position against them if you still believe they are wrong and strengthen your arguments against further challenge. This will make you much stronger. Then you will no longer have to misrepresent your opponent's position, and you may well have bridged at least part of the gap between the two of you. You will also be much better at withstanding your own doubts. And then he goes on to say, sometimes it takes a long time to figure out what somebody genuinely means when they are talking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How often do people do that? Everyone does that to each other with whatever their opinion is. I just think of all the hot button political issues. Think of the opposing sides and how much they dismiss, or you just want to kill babies. It's parody down to this stupid level, or you just want men to tell you what to do with your body. No, there's so much more nuance to somebody's point of view, and how much better could we be kind to each other if we could give people the space to actually understand it. And I loved how he said it's probably even harder to summarize something back to somebody. You're going to have to do more work.
Yes. Which I love because it's expanding your own thought process. And yes, you could still disagree with them at the end of the day, or you could at least find some glimmer of similarity and connection. It is hard though, especially with that kind of stuff. I feel like people shut down a lot or get very emotional. And I feel like emotional intelligence, and I keep saying humility. I almost want to say like not letting your ego run. I know that's the same thing, but I feel like ego is a stronger word. Like people just don't want to be wrong, and they are like, no, my way is the right way because they're so passionate about it. It's just, oh God, it's a slippery slope.
It is. It is. And it's a refusal to be vulnerable.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, bear with me because this is kind of long, but it was interesting because this made me think about how there's sometimes we make our group, our friend group, or our social media group, or our Reddit channel to be too much of an echo chamber, and then you don't get the feedback that you need from other people and the challenge to your own thoughts, which anyway, he articulated this well. Much of what we consider healthy mental function is the result of our ability to use the reactions of others to keep our complex selves functional. We outsource the problem of our sanity. This is why the fundamental responsibility of parents to children is to render their children socially acceptable. If a person's behavior is such that other people cannot tolerate him, then all he has to do is place himself in a social context. Then people will indicate by being interested in or bored by what he says, or laughing or not laughing at his jokes, or teasing or ridiculing or even lifting an eyebrow, whether his actions and statements are what they should be. Everyone is always broadcasting to everyone else their desire to encounter the ideal. We punish and reward each other precisely to the degree that each of us behaves in keeping with that desire, except, of course, when we are looking for trouble. Sorry, one more paragraph. The sympathetic responses offered during a genuine conversation indicate that the teller is valued and that the story being told is important, serious, deserving of consideration, and understandable. Men and women often misunderstand each other when these conversations are focused on a specific problem. Men are often accused of wanting to fix things too early on in a discussion. This frustrates men who like to solve problems and to do it efficiently, and who are in fact called upon frequently by women for precisely that purpose. It might be easier for my male readers to understand why this does not work, however, if they could realize and then remember that before a problem can be solved, it must be formulated precisely. Women are often intent on formulating the problem when they are discussing something, and they need to be listened to, even questioned, to help ensure clarity in the formulation. Then, whatever problem is left, if any, can be helpfully solved. It should also be noted that too early problem solving may also merely indicate a desire to escape from the effort of the problem formulating conversation.
Well, this just hits home. It's funny because as a woman, I feel like I'm only in the woman camp maybe 25% of the time, but that 25% of the time definitely resonates. Like I don't even know what I don't know, and I just need to process and I just need to listen. But then the other 75%, I'm like, is it our masculine coming out? Because I would just like to solve the problem quickly. So it's funny that yeah.
I think relationally and in my day-to-day life, I want to vent about things or talk them out or things of that nature. But when I'm in a workspace,
That's true.
I get very not detail-oriented, task-driven, where I want to accomplish things and move through problems. I don't know. You're also in a different position where you're managing people. So I think some of that also comes out of being solution-focused and solution-oriented.
Yeah.
Which they're not bad skills, but it is funny because you just told the story of you and Kenny, and you were in the opposite role.
But there are times where I'm definitely kind of categorized in the way he's describing it, and it's just a totally different perspective. And I had to remember that because it doesn't happen as often.
I like the way he phrased it, because everybody can understand why fixing a problem is helpful. It's really nice to know, or to reframe it, to say these people aren't just blathering on about nothing. They're trying to get to what the problem is, and they're trying to sort out what issues are going on and flesh out the foundation completely. And that's valuable, just as valuable as fixing the problem. Because like you said, if you're not even fixing what the actual problem is, you're not going to get the outcome you want. And then also, are you just trying to fix it so the person will hurry up and shut up, which is definitely something I've done before.
Yep.
Okay, I have two more quotes and then I will shut up. Okay. A conversation such as this one, which he's talking about, like a healthy, full-blown conversation, because we're bringing this all together at the end. Conversations such as this one, where it is the desire for truth itself on the part of both participants that is truly listening and speaking. That's why it's engaging, vital, interesting, and meaningful. That sense of meaning is a signal from the deep, ancient parts of your being. You are where you should be, with one foot in order and the other tentatively extended into chaos and the unknown. You're immersed in the Tao, following the great way of life. There, you're stable enough to be secure, but flexible enough to transform. There, you're allowing new information to inform you, to permeate your stability, to repair and improve its structure, and expand its domain. There, the constituent elements of your being, can find their more elegant formation. A conversation like that places you in the same place that listening to great music places you, and for much that same reason. A conversation like that puts you in the realm where souls connect, and that's a real place. It leaves you thinking, that was really worthwhile. We really got to know each other. The masks come off, and the searchers were revealed. So listen to yourself and to those with whom you are speaking. Your wisdom then consists not of the knowledge you already have, but the continual search for knowledge, which is the highest form of wisdom. It is for this reason that the priestesses of the Delphic oracle in ancient Greece spoke most highly of Socrates, who always sought the truth. She described him as the wisest man living because he knew that what he knew was nothing.
That last sentence. I like how he said it, though. I don't even have anything smart to say after that, because it's...
Who can outsmart the Delphic oracle? Sometimes I like reading his quotes because I feel so smart just saying these words out loud.
Oh my God.
I really like that. You don't know what you don't know. And we all have encountered the people who think they know everything, and they're the worst.
They are the worst. There's so much. How can you be so blind and ego to the fact that you really think you know everything?
It's very true. Oh, I think that the tip this week is just to give this a try.
Listen.
Just try listen. Try the rephrasing. Try the summarizing. It's couples therapy 101. It's everything. It's communication 101. Like you said, it's even built into your company's training.
Yeah. It's crazy. What is the next chapter?
The next chapter is chapter 10. Be precise in your speech.
Oh. This is going to also hit home.
Sometimes I do so much meandering about. I'm actually kind of excited because I don't know where it's going to... I don't know what to expect from that
You
chapter.
never know. You never know where it's going to go with him. But that's the fun parts.
Well, excuse me. I love you. I hope everybody listening... Oh, what was that? I think a piece just fell out of my chair. Anyway, I love you. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a lovely week.
Thank you. Happy Tuesday. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye. It's true. A screw fell out of my stool.
Oh my God. I hate when that happens.
Jiggling around on here too much.